Dallas, there's Mike Parsons.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Big D today, Andy. That is the Dallas Cowboys are under the microscope of The Deep Dive. And this is an interesting team in many, many ways. Obviously, still holds the imagination and the fandom of the broadest number of NFL fans.
Yeah.
And the most primetime games, again, surprise, surprise. They're going to be in our lives this year a lot. So get used to it. And I will say this. It's a weird, interesting year for them because last year they finally win the AFC East. I shouldn't say finally. They win the NFC. Excuse me. I shouldn't even say.
It's been a long week, guys.
They win the NFC East for getting by the Eagles with a great late surge while the Eagles flopped. They get 3 straight years with 12 wins. A lot of success in the regular season for this.
And then what happened?
But yeah, and then it all went tits up in the playoffs against the Green Bay Packers. And this is a common theme now. It's becoming like the expectation more than the rule for Mike McCarthy.
12 wins and a bad playoff loss.
Solid regular season success and then early exit. Underachieving expectations in the playoffs has become his MO. And really now he is on the hottest of hot seats of all coaches. And he is going to have to somehow find playoff success to save his job this year while doing it with a worse team. I don't think anyone can really look at what the roster of the Cowboys looks like this year and say that they've upgraded anything from last year. And so things are pretty clearly potentially the end of an era. And maybe we're being a little bit quick. I mean, Mike Zimmer did elect to come out of retirement in order to take on a defensive coordinator role. We would probably doubt that he's just entertaining that over a year. I mean, they made some draft choices with his direct input. So, we could have, there could be a longer arc here for McCarthy than we realize. But I would say that Jerry Jones certainly feels impatient. And I think he certainly feels the pressure of trying to put a competitive roster together with salary cap implications and all. And for those reasons, this is a pretty incomplete team, and that's weird to say considering how high end the top end talent is.
The highs are high and the lows are low. And we won't get too much into the contract situations of said high end players because we're going to be talking about 2024. We're going to be trying to put together our rating, our power rating, our number to compare this relative to the other teams in the league for betting for this coming year. But there is a lot of weird stuff going to have to happen with the contracts going forward. Like, I think with any other owner, you would just assume, like, why didn't they go all in? Because it's about to be a rebuild. Like, they can't keep kicking this can down the road. There's too many people to be paid. And I know some of the reasons that Jerry gave for not signing some free agents in spots of need was, hey, we got to pay this guy, we got to pay that guy. Dak doesn't really have a long-term contract right now. Like, there's so much things that need to happen in the future, but it's turned it into a weird roster. And like you said, it's probably gotten worse. There's a few spots of strength that have gotten worse. And, there were some injuries last year. I think we're going to see improvements in a couple things on the defense and maybe some more creative play calling. I don't think it's a downgraded defensive coordinator. I love Dan Quinn. I said a lot of nice things about him in his second chance as a head coach, but Zimmer might be better. Zimmer was an electric defensive coordinator. He's one of those where I don't think he's suited to be a head coach.
All that said, though, this Dallas team last year was second in offense in EPA per play and fourth in defense. So two top fives.
Yep.
You would agree with me that you would be shocked if they replicate either of those, right?
I don't think they have the rosters to be top 5, but I don't think they can fall too far below. It's like the floor went down for both the offense and the defense, but not like to below average. It's like, hey, this was top 5 on both sides of the ball. Next year, top 10. Hey, that's good. It's still a good team. Like, this is still a team that should be very much favored to make the playoffs. It just, if they don't hit some things, if some certain new guys in new positions don't work out, they're not going to push the Eagles. It's not going to be as much of a 2-horse race in this division as we got to see, which was fun, unless you were an Eagles fan, because, God, that collapse was obviously really something. So, yeah, it was an ugly offseason, honestly, because of the expectations set by Jera. I believe was he at the Senior Bowl or something like that early when he gave that famous quote about how they're going all in, or we're gonna do something, and then what was their best offseason acquisition?
Wow.
You can use a draft pick, can be it.
I didn't even really like their draft picks.
I mean, they didn't have a high pick. They picked in the mid-20s there. I think 27 or something.
Their best acquisition, I can't count Trayvon Diggs coming back, right?
No.
Probably Eric Kendricks then. Ugh.
Good coverage linebacker still. He's far from his highest highs. I'm going to cheat and say Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
It's not going to be Zeke. It's certainly not going to be any of the second, third, fourth round picks. So, yeah, Mike Zimmer, or like you said, the return of our injured cornerback there. That's probably a big one too. So the offseason was a negative. All in all, you lost some offensive linemen that were starting. You lost a running back, and I don't care if it was a disappointing year. You lost a running back, and you probably got worse in that room.
Yeah.
You lost Gallup. You lost a couple of defensive linemen, 3, I think. Yeah. Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, Hankins, Van Der Esch retires. Gilmore doesn't even have a team yet, which is what it is. But he was still a part of this team and played quite a bit. So there's a lot more exits and entrances.
Okay, so let's do a little autopsy on 2023, because again, like, you looked at the EPA per play stuff, team level, they were great. DVOA, not quite as kind to them. They had the 9th best offense via DVOA, so maybe they played some easy defenses. They had the 5th best defense, DVOA, 7th overall, I guess. 4th overall, my bad. The key, I think, though, is really it's tough to come up with a fair number for what they were last year, because when they were better than a team, they skull fucked them. And when they were kind of in a dogfight or a little worse than a team, they got beat. Mm-hmm. And it was classic sort of bully mentality, which you see from time to time with teams. And I think that's sort of understood market wide, that was just kind of who they were. What I don't think is very clearly explored market wide is that they were leaking oil badly down the stretch. This was a team that quintessentially peaked too early. No question. In my mind, they were outstanding through 13 weeks of the season, and their Super Bowl was beating the Eagles 33-13. Because after that, they only covered one more game. It was against Washington. They only won 2 more games, the second of which was a squeaker against the Lions that they probably should have lost if there was a different set of penalties.
Was there some sort of controversy at the end of that?
There was controversy at the
end. Drug out
one,
for fucking weeks. We talked about.
We could go on. I could literally spend 10 minutes talking about all of the fond memories of Cowboys games last season. But a couple of the high points are they got clearly stratified as second best in the NFC by getting throttled by the Niners early. I'm still not over the fact that they could not punch it in to beat the Eagles in week 8. Still very upset about that in that 5-point loss. They didn't even cover that game. I forgot about
Prescott had like 400 damn yards in that game.
Oh, it was so bad. And then, they were a brilliant team to lay the points against. They covered 17.5 against the Giants, for Christ's sakes. They covered 13.5 against the Commanders and 13 against the Commanders over the season. Like this was a team that when they were the better team, they won by 35 points.
We
like
did go to the well
style.
a little on that. When they played a really bad, especially some of these division opponents, they could really put it on them. And getting half a dozen pick sixes didn't hurt. All from the same guy. Like they were scoring on the other side of the ball as well as being, very effective offensively for the most part. When again they're playing a defense they could handle. Prescott was very much on, even with some this and that in the offensive line.
Do you remember after week 13 when the Cowboys beat the Eagles? Was Prescott the MVP favorite then? If he wasn't the favorite, he was absolutely in the discussion. He was having his career year.
Yeah, he had just had like three. The Washington, Seattle, and Philly games all in a row were very, very
nuclear hot. Yeah,
above average.
Yeah.
And
then he drove it off. Yeah, kind of went off the cliff. So his performance certainly changed from that point forward. We don't know why. The defense, even more so, I thought, showed some cracks, particularly on the running game. They all of a sudden couldn't get off the field, and it was noticeable. And, I think to a degree, there became a blueprint on how to beat these guys. And, people executed it well. Good teams executed it well down the stretch.
Be a better team than them,
and Buffalo executed it.
They're not handling this adversity well.
Mostly, though, Green Bay in the playoffs executed it. The Green Bay game in the playoffs was my favorite playoff game of all because of the outcome. I had a lot of Green Bay, and I was very happy that they not only covered without a sweat but won. And I kind of felt like there's been some revisionist history about the way that went. Like they got the ball first. They got some pretty big conversions in the first couple of drives. They got a little bit of success, which kind of takes a lot of pressure off of a first-time playoff starter in Jordan Love. And then they got to go downhill, and they actually flipped it to where the pressure was entirely on the home team, and they were choking bigly. And I think just in general, like, things happen a little differently in the first quarter of that game, and it's probably not a lopsided defeat. That said, it was 99% win probability for Green Bay relatively early in that contest, which is not good for a wild card round playoff game when you're the 2 seed and you're at home and you're playing a bunch of kids. And I think ultimately, I assumed in the moment that was going to cost McCarthy his job. It did not. It didn't cost anyone their jobs, I guess, right? Like they're basically all coming back. Dan Quinn left out of his own accord to get hired by the Commanders, which is why we have Mike Zimmer now. But no one really there was really no consequences other than Dak didn't get his contract.
Yeah, I was going to say, you wonder if Dak gets a contract. Yeah. Like if he's in, say, NFC title game, loses a close one, composed himself really well, because it wasn't a great Dak game. Like
if he comes back and wins that game after going down 14-0, he probably gets extended.
His stat line looks good when you look at it from end of the game stat line, but the touchdowns, 2 of the touchdowns were late. They were down 48-16 when he threw 2 of his touchdowns. So, I mean, the pick early, the pick 6 early.
The pick 6 with 2 minutes to go, and the before halftime was the what's the right word? Death knell? I don't know.
At that point, they were. I mean, you're at like a 4% win probability, probably. Like you're pretty toast.
Yeah, absolutely. So the but in that game, I thought McCarthy made some terrible decisions on just his kind of degree of which he understood the stakes. But McCarthy survives. Dak doesn't get extended, and now you have a weird situation where both the quarterback and the coach are lame ducks.
Yeah, and to be fair, a little, and it takes 2 to tango. But you talked about Dallas peaking too early. Like Green Bay peaked just right.
Oh yeah, no
that
question.
Team was like coming into that was not a team you wanted to play.
No,
and I didn't expect it to go that poorly. Like give up 48 points poorly, but at the same time, it's still Dallas. What did we expect?
Yeah, I don't think any wild card would have been an especially good matchup for them, except the Eagles. The Rams would have been tough for them too, the way Rams were running the ball and their inability to stop the run. That would have been tough. So I don't know. We've already kind of covered the offseason. It was pretty much an F. I mean, they didn't do anything like that was that bad, but they also didn't do anything that was going to help them win a Super Bowl this year. And in fact, they put themselves squarely in a position where expectations are playoffs, we hope. And considering, where they've been and how talented this team was 1 year ago, that feels like a huge, huge step backwards, right?
Yeah. I mean, in the end, I still have this as close enough to a top 10 team where I would assume, from my standpoint, from my ratings, like they should make the playoffs, especially in the NFC. But they're close enough to that precipice of a couple things go wrong, one bad injury, and like you're the 18th best team in the league, and you're sitting at home, and then definitely suddenly you're looking for a new head coach. Funniest outcome would be like a good defensive performance this year, and they don't make the playoffs because the offense flounders or Lamb misses serious time. They just elevate Zimmer, which would just be such a bad call. But I don't know. You never know what Dallas is going to do. Jerry
Never know.
Jerry is a little bit of a wild card sometimes.
They lost all 4 games where they were dogs. I thought that was interesting. And I guess maybe expectations only became high because by Thanksgiving we were talking about this as this team, the best team in the NFL. And their win total last year was 9.5. Like, this wasn't necessarily expected to be a world beating team. And I think also like just the fact that they kind of fit the mold of when you're playing a bad team, you don't just beat them, you beat them convincingly. Like the fact that they were able to do that so often, particularly in the middle of the season, really kind of changed the paradigm, kind of moved the needle, changed the temperature under them. So, those were all factors. But what do you want to go through rankings right now, or do you have specific weaknesses or concerns that you want to raise?
I mean, just starting on the offensive side, like we talked about, you have one of the best quarterbacks.
That's a great point. What should they have done this offseason, Andy? If we're giving them an F, what should they have done? If the goal was literally we have a championship window with the talent on this team now, what should they have done?
You probably needed to make a little better effort to replace Smith, your tackle. Like the offensive line is going to take a step back, it appears, even if it stays healthy. You should have maybe not just gone with paying Zeke, even what you're paying him. I don't know if I love that move. And maybe a little more effort put into putting someone with CD Lamb. It's not just Brandon Cooks and Jalen Tolbert as your 2 and 3 options. Like when you have Dak at his peak, when he's playing well and the offensive line's playing well, he's a top 5 quarterback. CD Lamb, no doubt, is a top 3 wide receiver, and he's only 24. Like, you have these key pieces in place, and you're going to let this team take a step back at offensive line, probably get worse as far as a skill position group, and to hope for a better result, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. I would have made a better effort to put some pieces, supporting pieces around Dak. Dak and CD, to be fair to CD. And I guess that probably does include shoring up the offensive line a little more.
Right.
Like if they'd have just make a little effort for an offensive lineman in free agency, a little better one, make a little more effort to find somebody as a wide receiver 2 or 3, or even some depth there. I'm a little happier, but at this point, what are you going to do?
Here's what I would
Can't go get everything.
Here's what I would have done. I would have hired an actual general manager.
Traded for Lamar 3 years ago.
I would have hired an actual general manager instead of this de facto thing.
Sure.
I would have fired McCarthy. I would have hired Ben Johnson as the next head coach. I would have extended Dak Prescott, giving yourself more cap flexibility this year. I would have put that cap flexibility this year into extensions for CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons so that you have those 3 players locked up for the next 5 years. And then I would kind of trade some of these older assets who still have some name brand value for more draft capital. I would have swung harder on the draft instead of trying to fortify the trenches. I would have tried to get young skill position talent. This is kind of one of the key weaknesses with this group is that they are so reliant on CeeDee Lamb that if, like you said, if that's the problem. Like if CeeDee Lamb gets hurt, like season's over. If Micah Parsons gets hurt, season's over. Like you can't be that fragile I don't think. When you are in a division,
this is like the Rams
winnable.
teams. This is the Rams teams with worse coaching, worse management, and more fragility.
Thank you. Very, very well said. I completely agree.
I agree. I guess I didn't even think about going again because I said it off the top. I'm not thinking about the future, but everything you said is correct. Like they should be moving the money backwards so that they can put pieces around. Like just get the deal done. Jerry has this weird penchant for just I don't know, stalling, putting his foot on the brakes until it's almost too late, and then okay, we'll get this deal done now, and end up probably making everything, including the cap situation, worse for it. So yeah, getting those contracts done earlier rather than later, it's pretty clear. Like those are positions that you can absolutely spend money on. It isn't like, oh man, hey, this rookie running back has had like 2 all-pro years. Like, are we really going to pay him like a long-term contract? Like, well, probably not. You try to get something out of him before his usefulness is gone. But it's quarterback, it's wide receiver 1, and it's edge rusher. Like, just throw in left tackle, and it's like those are the positions you're absolutely able to say like, hey, we spent a lot of long-term money on this, and everybody's going to be fine with it. That's what you do.
Yeah. Similarly, like I'm not exactly sure why Tyler Smith, who looks to be an elite piece on that offensive line, like, is he really best served as guard? I don't know. Like, I kind of would have tried to be a little bit more outside the box, and instead I think it feels fairly like easy to criticize these guys for just being cheap, which is bizarre. I don't get it. Maybe you thought I don't know. I honestly don't understand it from a vision standpoint at all, particularly for a guy who kind of consistently like references like how much longer he's going to be around and he wants to see another championship, blah blah blah. Like it doesn't really feel like they've extended their window at all. It almost feels like they're trying to find a way to hit a hard reset, which really would be weird considering how good at least their top 3 players are. They have I don't know. So what where are you feeling wise with Dak as far as his standing among the elite NFL quarterbacks and his relationship with McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer?
We've seen him take weird steps back when the offensive line has had a lot of issues. And he's had some injuries over the years, but when he's healthy, when the line's playing well, and he has his full complement, he's top 5. He's certainly not I don't think he's in the conversation to be like one of the top 2, 3, but he's right there at like 5, 6. It seems pretty steady Eddie over the course of his career. When he's healthy, he's very much elite. And as much as we were a little worried about the loss of Moore last year, it wasn't like some massive step back for the offense, especially when you were playing bad teams. So I want to blame both sides of the ball for this. I don't want to just put it on McCarthy and Schottenheimer. Like, hey, you're playing a really good team like the Niners and the offense looks like shit. Well, the defense did too. And a good player like, Parsons and your defensive backs and Quinn didn't seem to be able to do a lot on the other side of the ball either. So I don't want to pin it all on McCarthy and Schottenheimer for not having the answers against good teams. It was everybody. Okay. It was a team effort to lose those games. At the same time, like, so I'm not enamored with him. It's like I'm not going to trade a lot of there's not a lot of offensive coordinators that wouldn't make this team better.
Okay. Do you think it is unfair that Dak has this cloud hanging over him of being a choker? Wilting when the lights are the brightest. There's been comps to Roy McIlroy. Roy McIlroy, people were saying, oh yeah, he's gone full desk for Dak Prescott here. Like what degree of that criticism is results-based narrative bullshit, and what degree do you think maybe there is a thing here?
It's got to be a little. Although, I mean, it's been just Dallas in general for like 20 years now. And again, it's such a small sample. Like, oh, they always lose in the playoffs. What are you talking about? Like 9 games? That's such a small sample of like games, you guys. It's not a ton. And those are always going to be games against better than average teams. like we said, they ran into a really bad spot last year with Green Bay absolutely peaking on offense. A couple of these other playoff losses, like, well, what are you gonna do? Like, that was a tough team. The tough team played well. And at the same time, if you're going to be an elite quarterback, if you want to be a team that can be labeled as elite, as a top 5 team, you have to win some of those games. You can't lose them all. You got to win like half of those games, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we're getting pretty close to signal.
Okay. I think
like
that's
one
a very sober, reasonable take. I mean, like, you would like something on the other side of the coin, right? Like, where they're not expected to do well and they surprise you to the good, and there's been none of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you should have a balanced distribution, not a lopsided distribution.
How often do we go into a game where we have like no expectations of the Cowboys, though?
Never.
That's not a thing. We haven't given them a chance for that.
Well, I had low expectations when they went to San Francisco, and they had a fighting shot in that game. I guess is against Purdy 2 years ago in the playoffs.
2 years back, yeah.
I mean, I had low expectations from them, and they didn't win, so who cares? But yeah, you're right. It's very rare that there is low expectations for this team. I guess there kind of is this year, right? Like, second choice in the NFC East,
lower, yeah.
Fourth-ish, fifth-ish choice in the NFC broadly. Yeah, like this is a little lower expectations than we've been keeping an eye on. Anyway, what's your number for Dallas? OCQB.
So for quarterback and over offensive coordinator / quarterback is 7.5.
We agree. I'm exactly there with you.
And I think it would be higher with a different coaching staff. I think.
Yes. Yeah. Not much though. I'm not going much higher than 8 with Dak involved. Probably.
I have Dak as an 8 and change, not 8.5, but 8 and change. It's the coaching and scheme that's going to bring that down a little. So 7.5 for offensive coordinator / quarterback for Dallas, which is what I weight the heaviest. It's the most important thing, and they have a really good quarterback for now, at least.
Okay. Skill position group. Very, very tough.
This was so tough. Like it said, You probably have the third best wide receiver who has an absolute argument to be the best wide receiver. Like, if CeeDee Lamb has the most catches, the most yards, the most touchdowns, or wins offensive player of the year,
I thought he deserved more consideration for OPOY last year.
None of those things would surprise me. I still have this as a 5. And he's doing all the carrying because the depth behind him is not good.
Yeah.
The only plus I can say outside of CeeDee Lamb is Jake Ferguson. You have an above average tight end, probably more than above average. Like, Jake Ferguson's good. You have a good, not great tight end. You have Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Ezekiel Elliott, and Rico Dowdle. And Zeke can definitely help in the passing game a little, but man, his best years are behind him. Obviously, we saw that.
Who's the name on of any of the skill guys? Who's the name that you're like will be a household name by Thanksgiving?
Oh, as far as anyone? Like other people
other than Lamb.
I mean, Zeke's still going to be good in short yardage, and that is something they actually lacked last year. Is somebody who could just pound it in. So, like, Zeke having like 400 yards and 11 touchdowns this year kind of checks out.
Okay.
But I mean, go look at the depth behind like Tolbert, Cooks. You're talking Kevontae Turpin, David Durden, Jalen Cropper. I should make one up and see if you can pick it out. Ryan Flournoy, Jalen Brooks. So that not only did they lack a little in.
You don't have high hopes for Racy McMath?
Racy McMath does sound like the most made up one. Racy McMath. I remember we talked about this last year. That Tyron Billy Johnson. Corey Crooms.
Wait. You know what my favorite part is? His name is not Tyron William Johnson.
It's Billy Johnson.
Tyron Billy Johnson. I love that. Love this group. This is hilarious.
Yeah, getting another getting an outside threat would have been massive. A big outside threat.
Wouldn't have been?
CD's so good though, so it's hard to take this below average. Like it's crazy. You have a top 3 wide receiver.
I'm not
in the
below
world.
average. I'm 5.5.
I'm a 5.
But this is a 5.5 that I don't think has much room to go higher. And also, first of all, I'm 5.5 because I'm giving an absolutely bananas target share to CeeDee Lamb in this offense. Like I'm assuming that this is CeeDee Lamb or maybe some Brandon Cooks or tight ends. Like there's not a lot of other targets to go around, I don't think. And I look at the tight end room, and you could do pretty well with just some 22 personnel here. Like after Ferguson, like Schoonmaker's got, he's got some ability. You still have Peyton Hookersnott around. Yeah.
Targets last year. So your second leading target getter was the tight end Jake Ferguson. Like I mentioned, I like him. I think he's good. How many more targets did CeeDee Lamb have than the second most targeted wide receiver?
70?
You are short a digit.
Oh, wow.
It is 100 exactly. Not including I think that did include
targets. He had 100 more targets.
181. Brandon Cooks, who's he even play for?
I might have been low on target share.
Yeah. So CeeDee Lamb
is still here, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking of Gallup, excuse me. Gallup was your third. He had 57. Gallup
is now a Raider.
A Raider. 81 for Cooks, 181 for CeeDee Lamb.
Wow.
102 for Jake Ferguson.
Was he the most targeted receiver in football? Had to be, right?
I feel like it's got to be up there.
It's got to be number 1. 181. Wow. That's a lot.
Most targeted players. I feel like Tyreek was right there too, though.
Most touches went to Christian McCaffrey.
He's pretty good. CeeDee Lamb, number 1. Devontae Adams, 175.
Wow, that's high.
Tyreek Hill, 171. Garrett Wilson, 168. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 164.
Thank you.
Puka, a rookie, 160.
So I'm at 5.5 because I'm expecting Lamb to be able to do the same thing this year, and I'm at but this is lopsided where I can't go up much higher, but I could definitely go down if something happens to Lamb. Like this gets nuked.
If Lamb gets hurt, it's like a 2.5.
Yeah. O-line.
5.
And if Smith gets hurt, this is
it's the same kind of thing. So yeah, basically it's a weird mishmatch. You have 2 studs, a schmuck, and 2 rookies playing out of position.
Well, I guess Zach Martin is still a stud.
Yes, I absolutely. Okay. He's one of the best guards, but it's still a guard, and he's playing in between 2 players that might not be good. So Guyton, little raw, especially in pass pro at left tackle. Tyler Smith is very good. You have 2 very good guards. And then center is going to be Brock Hoffman or Cooper Beebe. And Beebe was a guard. He didn't play center in college. Same thing with Guyton. Guyton's probably playing left side. He played right side in college. Like I mentioned, Zach Martin, your right guard's good, if not one of the best at times. And then you have a right tackle in Terrence Steele, who was not good last year. So 2 good guards, 2 rookies who are to some degree switching positions, and a bad right tackle.
Yeah, I think it's very hopeful that Steele pops and is good. That's probably
he had better number. He had some better numbers in 22, I think, if I looked right.
Okay.
So he is capable. Just we didn't get it last year.
So you're at 63rd percentile offense. I'm at 64th. We're almost in lockstep here. But we agree that.
What you have for an O-line number then?
Kind of at 5. Yeah, 5 exactly. But we agree we're kind of banging our head against what the best you could be.
Yeah, like let's say Guyton, let's say both rookies in the offensive line play really well. It's like a 6 on the offensive line, then maybe 6.5. Dak is kind of at his ceiling for offensive line, and then unless they sign someone, I don't think we can go up in skill position. So the offense is, like you said, we're banging our head on the top of the range already.
Yeah. Run stop.
4.
Should be better because of coaching.
It should be, but still, this is the weakness on the defensive side. The other two positions I have a little bit higher. I think I was probably a little tough on them here.
You're at 4.
This could be
I'm
between.
lower. I'm
Oh,
lower. I'm at
really?
3.5. Yeah.
Okay, so I think Zimmer's good. I think his scheme is going to be fine. But yeah, run stop was like Lawrence. It's going to be good. Odigizua, good. Mozzie Smith, not good. Like he had a really bad
feels like
run defense
like a real
and then
problematic pick in hindsight.
basically everybody else, including at the second level, didn't have great run defense numbers for me. So 4 for me there.
Okay. What do you make of the linebacking core currently? Because last year, like Leighton Vander Esch retires. He was not. He was having some problems. I don't love the tackling, and I guess here's where I'm struggling. How much of the Cowboys' identity on defense last year was a reflection of Dan Quinn versus just the talent that they had, talent deficiencies they had, and the corners that they had? Like it doesn't feel like the Diggs and the Deron Bland like turnover kind of, that type of mentality. It didn't feel like something that Dan Quinn was really like driving the ship on. It felt like that's just the way those guys were. They were risk takers. They were boom and bust corners, right? And I don't know that I'm nervous that there's a lot of expectation here that Zimmer's going to be able to fix something that in the end there's a lack of ingredients in the cupboard to do any fixing. And number two, that could just be the guys they have in their DNA.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I think you're right there. Like I said, I think Zimmer is at worst a lateral move at DC, and everything else is just like skill driven.
Yeah,
it's talent driven. Like Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, the way Deron Bland played. And honestly, it's funny how we dogged on Diggs 2 years ago for being boomer bust. It's like, oh, this guy's so boomer bust, and
then Bland did it too.
Deron Bland is like, you want to see boomer bust?
I'll boomer bust, yeah.
Although he did tighten things up later in the year, and then everyone decided just to pick on the slot corner instead. But a lot of it is just talent driven. Like they have too much talent, and you have a good defensive coordinator in Quinn. You have a new good defensive coordinator in Zimmer. I think shit's just going to be fine on the other two. That said, at the first and second levels, I don't have a lot of good run stoppers. I don't have a lot of great tacklers. Like you talk about the tight ends. My notes for Kendricks and Damone Clark are Clark is a little better, but it's like, hey, they're good. They can cover. Like there's some coverage ability there that's going to help the secondary as well. But run stop's definitely the lowest for me.
Okay. What's your pass rush number?
7.5.
Oh man, look at us. We nailed it on quarterback, OC and pass rush. We agree. 7.5.
What are you gonna do? I mean, it's the same thing as we did with Dak, and as we did with CeeDee Lamb. Like you have one guy very much putting up a big number here.
Yeah. If you're redrafting all defensive players, Micah Parsons first overall. Pretty easy decision.
Van Ginkel. You just wait. I'm gonna bet him player of the year, defensive player of the year this year. Between
where is he now? Lions?
He's a Viking.
He's a Viking. Okay, thank you.
I go see him in person 8 times. Who knows? Between him and Lawrence, like it's very, very good. Lawrence is like a big part of anything positive I had to say on the run stop. Like the rest. No.
I mean across the entire. Oh, okay.
Oh no, I just went back to Dallas. I don't know. I hate those hypotheticals because I feel like the first one should always be a quarterback.
No, I said you're redrafting all defensive players.
Oh, well, yeah. Him or Garrett. Him or Garrett.
Okay.
Garrett's got more hate in his heart. Maybe Garrett.
You got more miles on his shoulder too. All right. coverage number?
7.5. Same.
Oh, whoa. Talk me through this. Talk me through 7.5.
Don't give a shit that we lost. I can't think of his name now.
Stephon Gilmore. Wow.
With Diggs and Bland back, you have as good of a 1-2 out there as a lot of teams. I think you have above average, if not good, quality safety tandem, Wilson Hooker. Like I said, Kendricks, Damone, a couple other guys, decent coverage help. And then Jordan Lewis might get replaced. Like they might bring another guy in to rotate through this rookie they drafted out of Wake Forest. So I had just good skill positioned rankings all the way across for basically everyone who's not Jordan Lewis. And okay. I didn't know how to make my coverage numbers lower.
Okay, so I'm at 6.
Good coverage guys and ball hawks.
I'm at 6 for coverage, and I'll be frankly honest with you. Among all of the ratings we're going to do, I'm going to have by far the tightest bands on my coverage numbers because I just don't have a lot of high confidence takes on who is actually good because the year over year shit is so goddamn noisy. So far, the highest coverage unit I've rated was Tennessee's, and that's largely because I believe in. I have conviction that we covered one of the top 5 CBs in the NFL in L'Jarius Sneed, right? And I don't have conviction that Diggs or Bland is in that conversation. I think a lot of their success is born out of turnovers, and I know that is especially not sticky. So I'm not going to go out on a limb with this coverage unit just yet, especially because Diggs is coming off a non-trivial injury. We'll see how he looks.
I seem to, and it's funny too, I seem to value a unit more than like L'Jarius Sneed is so good because I agree with you there. I should look. What was my rating for Tennessee secondary? Same number, 7.5.
Okay. Because I like McCreary, I like Sneed.
Oh no, I had
okay. So it was a unit thing for sure. God damn it, they need to bring Justin Simmons in and get rid of this Jamal Adams nonsense. That would be the best coverage unit in the NFL if they did that. But whatever. You think there's a chance Dallas brings in Justin Simmons, by the way? Did you see he was wearing a Dallas hat the other day?
Maybe.
Okay.
I'd be interested to see if he gets Gilmore because like jokes
There's
aside,
been some rumors that he may come back on a cheap number to Dallas.
There's teams that he would help. Like he's can be fine still. It's not like he's a million.
Okay, so you're at the 63rd percentile for offense and defense with the Cowboys. I'm at the 57th percentile on defense, which feels low. It feels low. I'll be honest with you. I think defense is a weak link system, and I think that it is not out of the realm of possibility to think that Mazzy Star or Osa or Eric Kendricks or Jordan Lewis might be the weak link, right? Like there's a lot of weak link candidates that they're trotting out there.
Well, that's another reason, Drew, that I was maybe hesitant to lower my coverage grade.
Yeah.
It's easier to prop up a coverage grade when the pass rush is good.
Let me throw something out there and you can defend his honor.
Okay.
Mike Zimmer is solved. He has a plan A. He has a plan A for how he wants to execute his defense against a given offense. It stopped working a long time ago.
I think it's tough.
He has never shown an ability to come up with a plan B. In fact, the last time that Zimmer had good halftime adjustments defensively was probably in the early 2000s.
No, I think he's one of those where if you don't give him the control of the team and he has to worry about the offense, he spent too many time answering questions about the offense that made me worried. Like, why does this guy have this much hand in the offense? Why do we continue here in Minnesota to hire the coordinators that we do? Like, if you have Zimmer, you need to hire a coordinator who can just take over that half of the room. Like that's his project because Zimmer needs to focus in on the defense. It's starting to slip and you're not seeing the level of defense that you were hoping you'd get from him when you hired away from Cincinnati. So it's tough. It's tough to say because we haven't really seen him in, it's been a minute and we haven't seen him as an actual, I'm the coordinator, not a head coach for 7 years?
Mm-hmm.
When did Minnesota hire him away? Yeah. It has been a spell. So it's tough to say. I think we need a word for this. It's almost a trigger. There's triggers every year as far as like things we look for early in the season that can quickly adjust our ratings. And I think that's definitely one
Dallas
of them.
shutting down a team in the second half would be.
Yeah, if Zimmer is making great adjustments or not making great adjustments, I think that's a good reason to adjust this defensive number.
Okay. That's fair. I also just in general, like I'm not seeing the type of roster outside of Parsons, who's good at everything. I'm not seeing a roster that really kind of conforms to what has been working in defense in the NFL these days. And again, like if I was going to characterize Zimmer's defense, particularly the coverage part of it, it's a lot of press and I think
he has the guys. I think he has the guys. No, I think they can do that. You have good enough safeties.
Okay.
Again, you have a weak link with Lewis, but you have good enough safeties and linebackers. I think you can press here.
Okay.
It'll be interesting because I think the outcome for the coverage is pretty wide, and I'm staked at the top.
Okay. I've had to kind of backtrack a bit on things just because I needed to kind of like when you take a giant step backwards and you look at the Cowboys and you're like, well, how are they going to find success this year? Like there's the questions at the skill group, at the O line, Dak, is he any good anymore? I don't really believe in, Schottenheimer. Like it's all offense. And you're like, man, if this team is good, if they win, if they exceed expectations, it's because the Zimmer comes in and the defense is amazing. And yet here I am looking at my numbers and I'm like, yeah, this is a 64th percentile offense and a 57th percentile defense. So to me, I'm kind of coming into this lower on defense than I thought I was going to, as I was just sort of how do I feel about this team? You are 63 on both.
I'm surprised we were this close. I thought we were going to be way off because this was a very difficult one to kind of suss everything out, I think.
Okay. Special teamos.
Special teams. So get ready for this one, Drew. This is an 8.
What? Okay. Again, I'm not challenging you because you did all the special teams work. I did nothing. I'm just copying you.
I mean, it wasn't a ton of
80th percentile is saying that this is like rare.
Brandon Aubrey. If you remember 2 years ago, they had a really bad kicker. Who was it?
The guy that couldn't make extra points in the playoffs.
I can't think of his name now. Yeah, he missed the 4 extra points in the playoff game. Brandon Aubrey was a soccer player that went 14 of 14 from kicks over 40. Hit all 10 of his attempts 50 and beyond. Brian Anger is a good enough punter. He can do a little better on his directional punting, his inside the 20 stuff. And then Turpin is a very fine kick returner. I think he actually might house a couple with the new rules. And John Fossil is widely lauded as one of the better special team coaches in the world.
Okay.
Not that John Fossil.
Sold.
Other John Fossil. This could be an 8.5, honestly.
Are you gonna have any team higher than them?
There's probably a few that are around this 8. This is close to the top of the range though. Okay. One of the best special team groups, and then coaching. Okay. I have a 6.
Okay. You have so for intangibles, you're going 6.
Because it's how about them boys?
Okay. I'm for my intangibles, I have a 1.
Lower. You have a 1?
No, I don't.
I didn't know you kind of deadpan that, dude.
But like Mike McCarthy is a complete wild card.
Much maligned, but I didn't think he did a bad job.
He didn't do a bad job last year, but also there's enough signal over the balance of his career to think you can't expect him to all of a sudden be doing all of the right things. And like, here's the reason I hold back a bit on McCarthy. And just for the record, I gave him a 5.5. Here's why I wasn't higher. When the going gets tough, it does feel like he makes the wrong decision a lot.
Almost always.
Almost always. And that's a problem.
The dull stare of the dairy cow in his eyes.
Yeah, that is really ultimately that is the key, which is that he happens to make the dumbest look on earth when things are going wrong, and the camera always finds him in that moment, just looking like an absolute dunce. And But if anything, that probably means he's not quite as bad as we seem to think he is, because that is, a mental bias we would have watching him do that. So we are very, very close here. You are 63rd percentile and 62nd percentile. You are a +4. I'm at +3.5.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the second best team we've covered so far after
second
Houston.
Second best team in Texas.
Okay. Second best team in Texas. Oh my gosh, you're right. Andy, I have to challenge you a little bit though. You would only have Dallas as a 0.5-point favorite over Atlanta.
I'm still going to be. You're going to bring up Atlanta every time we have a good team. I'm not lowering my Atlanta score.
I just want to know if you're sticking to your guns there. I got to know.
I'm going to, like Kirk Cousins. I'm still going to give Kirk Cousins much more benefit of much more doubt than you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's a fun one. Dallas hosting the Giants on Thanksgiving. If nothing else happens, you would have it as a 14-point game, roughly. So you should go ahead and lay the 8 now.
Yeah, that's a teaser. Boy, 8. Boy, a teaser of the week of the century.
Teaser of the week of the century. Holy shit. Surely. I mean, the way they played against bad teams, just lay the points. Why get cute? Why get cute?
I should go back and look at all my teasers I tracked and see, because I think anytime I did use Dallas, it was like, oh, this was actually a pleaser. Like, I should have laid the 19 instead of, taking this 13 down to a 7 or something.
I love it. All right, let's talk about some of this schedule. It's a favorable schedule broadly, mostly because your games against the Giants and the Commanders are, big blue numbers. Your games against Carolina, you have games against the entire NFC South, which is also giving you some nice blue numbers. And so there should be a lot of wins here. The only games where you are expected to be a dog are when you travel at San Francisco off your bye week 8 and at Philadelphia right before New Year's week 17. Otherwise, you're a favorite in every other game, including against Detroit when you're hosting them week 6, including against Baltimore, who you're hosting week 3, Cleveland week 1, you're a small favorite. At Atlanta, you're a 1-point favorite, Andy. Versus Philly, 1.5 points.
I disagree with that. Let's talk about the Atlanta game, because truthfully, these numbers are raw and they're a starting point. And we talked about this on one of the last podcasts with the pass rush being a strength for a team, and going up against I think it was going up against the Minnesota offensive line. Like, oh shit, like that's your only strength. The Giants, I think it was.
Yeah, it was Giants.
And it was it's like, oh, you're up against 2 really good tackles and a great center, which the center is the quarterback up there. They're calling everything out. That's going to be super important. We'll get into that a little more as we talk about Philly next. But you look at the Atlanta-Dallas matchup, I don't know, maybe the number's not that bad. And we talk about the difference between -1 and +1 when you're swinging through the 0, and how small some of those differences are based on the actual win probability, comparing it to the number because of how football has key numbers. I'm fine with that a little bit.
Dude, that week 9 game,
that's all strength on strength, right? Atlanta-Dallas, that's a fun game.
That week 9 game, Atlanta is just such a sweet bet.
Coming off the Niners game, second straight road game.
Hey, Dallas, week 8 off your bye, you get your revenge opportunity on the road against San Francisco. In prime time. Yeah. So go travel to the West Coast and play at night. And now next week, come back, and actually you're going to travel to the East Coast and you're going to play at 1.
Against another good set of skill position players that can test your defense.
Yeah,
another good quarterback.
That's a great spot for Atlanta. Oh, by the way, how would you know where you want to be, Andy? If you're on the Dallas Cowboys schedule, you know where you want to be. You want to be sandwiched between San Francisco and Philadelphia.
It's not a bad spot to be.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all because they're definitely thinking about Atlanta and not Philadelphia the next
Well,
week.
and that's the thing. If you lose that Atlanta game, that's like your mid-season death spiral because there's a decent chance your secondary had a bad time with Detroit. If it truly is a boom or bust, there's a decent chance you lost to the Niners off your bye. If you lose to Atlanta, it's Philly and Houston after that.
Oh my
Those
god,
are it's a very little rough stretch where
that's it.
your easiest game is the team that just upgraded the most out of anybody at quarterback in the last however many years, like in the free agency market. Would have been the Jets last year, but obviously we saw those 4 downs.
Wow. What a stretch.
At least you get Washington and the Giants after that. A little palate cleanser.
Yeah. And you got some other nice soft spots with. I mean, you end it really week 12. Okay, here's the deal. Houston is a bet against Dallas week 11, and Atlanta is a bet against Dallas week 9. In my opinion, I think they lose at least 2 of those games. They may lose all 4 of those games. Okay, the absolute like rock bottom for Dallas market wide this year, in my opinion, is going to be after that week 11 game when they lose to Houston at home. And then you get a stretch down the home stretch of Washington, New York.
Can you imagine if you got 2.5 for Dallas there at Washington?
There's no.
I don't. That number doesn't make sense right now with mine.
There's
so
no.
If I make Dallas, I make Dallas a 4. I just said Washington's a 6.5 down.
So maybe I made a scraping error there. It's possible.
Because right now, I mean, even at Washington, let's give them a full 2 points. I make Dallas like a touchdown there.
I'll tell you what it is. What's the day of that game?
That is Sunday, 11/24.
Sunday, 11/24. Maybe they assume they're going to be thinking about Thanksgiving. I don't know. Can't imagine why that number is so low. Dallas is now 3. It's now 3.5. Yeah, it's gotten better across. I
still think it's
still too low. It's still too low. Okay, so but here's the thing. The key point is if you want to get frisky with anything positive Dallas wise this season, winning the East, winning the NFC, winning the Super Bowl, I think you wait until that Monday Night Football game against Houston has come and gone. And the reason I say that is because I believe in Stingley versus CeeDee Lamb in that game. And I worry that Dallas is not going to be able to score points against Houston. And honestly, there are a death by 1,000 cuts with Houston against Dallas in that one. Pressure doesn't really phase the Slowick CJ combo. So Houston should very, very likely win that game with matchups, I think. And yeah, you finish with Washington, New York. The Cincy game is tough. Carolina, Tampa Bay. The Philly game is tough. Washington. There are 6 likely wins in your last 8 weeks. That is huge.
I like it. I'm fine with that. I mean, just looking at it from not even looking at the names, just the color, it feels like a jump on them late. Because that middle stretch is tough. Let them get through that middle stretch.
Is tough. They could be 3-3 at the bye.
If they play really well through the opening and middle stretch and you miss your opportunity, so be it. I'm still willing to wait.
Then it becomes a good number. Then you very much we're making the case very much that Dak can't do it in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, is it going to this well again, huh?
No, I think you're going to get some. Yeah, you're going to get some decent bets on them then because, it looks to me like 4-2, 3-3 is sort of where you're at by, right? Let's assume it's good and you're 4-2. You won your coin flips against Balto and Pittsburgh. You lost your coin flips against Cleveland and Detroit, whatever. You're 4-2. You're 1-3. Now you're 5-5. Your home stretch is almost certainly 6-2, maybe 7-1. That takes you to 12 wins, right? No, that takes you to. I got my math wrong somehow.
Yeah, price dependent. Once we get to the end of November there.
I guess you only have 5. Like I had one extra game at the end there. So basically I'm at 11-6 as sort of the landing spot off of 5-5, which is an awesome that's an awesome swing to the good for any type of future market, I think.
Yeah, I'm there. I can get there.
Okay. Maybe they'll have worked out some of the kinks with the O-line. Some of the questions with the run stop. Yeah. Dallas is a bet on late, a pass on early. Fair?
Yeah.
Real quick.
And if you're a Dallas fan, I guess just enjoy this year because fuck knows what's going to happen with these contracts in this offseason.
Man. It's rough, man. Yeah. I mean, they painted themselves in the corner. If Dak does well this year, they're going to have top dollar to pay. By the way, their win total of 10.5 under is juiced to -180. People do not like this team. The market does not like this team.
I think they're
wild.
I think 10 is like a fair number. You know, if you want to hang that,
it's basically 10.
It is a 10.
Under.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's 10 minus 120-ish.
Yeah. Oof. Wow. You have no appetite in taking them in the futures market now, right?
No, not at the current prices.
Okay.
I'll look at it later. I'll look at some other props, you know.
Their NFC price is 780. That's on par with the likes of the Packers and the, you know, a little worse than the Eagles.
Yeah, they're priced like it's a Cowboys team, so
yeah,
we'll avoid it for now. Nothing.
Why would you bet Cowboys NFC at plus 780, Andy, when you can have the Falcons at 12-1?
Exactly. With a much easier path.
Like a substantially easier schedule. Yeah. That's another reason that Atlanta game is so beautiful. Like Atlanta's just got to wait. They could literally just
Atlanta. If Kirk Cousins works out and just one or two little things, it is going to be the stupidest 1 seed ever. Like everyone's going to know this team is good, but they're not this good. Like, what is it? What am I taking crazy pills? And they're going to host all these games, and that's a good home field advantage.
Yeah. Plus 159 for the Cowboys to win the East. Yeah. It's tempting, but I'm out. I'm out
those
for now.
prices.
Let's bet some Cowboys. Let's bet some Cowboys to win the NFC East on the day after they lose that game to the Texans, which will be a Tuesday. I'm going to set.
What date was that? The 24th.
It's Tuesday, November 19th. Tuesday, November 19th. I'm going to set
it on
Google,
my Google calendar.
Say my Google calendar. Bet the Cowboys to win the NFC East. Because you know what else I love about that bet, Andy? They have a lot of winnable games down the stretch, and the one that controls their destiny, which is the Philly game.
I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to put things in my calendar like this. If nothing else, it'll be funny when it pops up on me later. Like, it's like it pops up when Dak's like in the hospital and, you know, McCarthy's fired.
Well, we'll have a good laugh about it. Like,
this?
Oh, that was a good point. Oh, yeah. Mike McCarthy's already been fired. Dak's speaking of, we didn't even mention it, but there's been a lot of nasty rumors about Dak's current state of health that we have not been able to verify. So
I didn't want to bring a lot of it up because, you know, the pictures and the rumors are one thing, and then his camp says everything's fine. So we're about to find out because we're getting very close to camp, and maybe something came out over the weekend. We pre-recorded this on Friday, so if you're listening to this and Dak is already under the knife or something hilarious, because that's how things work when you pre-record. Sorry. And anything else before we
let's move on.
All right. Well, appreciate you guys. Tomorrow, the Philadelphia Eagles, the NFC East favorites. We'll get into that. If you watch this on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. If you listen to the podcast form, we appreciate you. Have a good night. Have a good day. Have a good week. I'm on vacation. See you next week.